to Omas True Stories. This is the story of Kofi, the drummer boy.
In a small village nestled between the rolling hills and the great river, the people lived by the rhythm of the seasons. For generations, the villagers relied on their crops for survival, and the rains were their lifeblood. Yet in recent years, the weather had grown unpredictable, throwing their once steady lives into disarray. The rain would come too late, or the sun would scorch the earth for weeks on end, leaving the villagers to wonder if their ancient gods had turned away. Kofi, a young boy with a heart full of curiosity, watched his family toil under the hot sun day after day, their faces etched with worry as the crops withered in the unforgiving heat. He knew that something had to change, but what could a boy like him possibly do? One day, after another grueling morning in the sun, Kofi decided to wander into the nearby forest. The trees there were tall and ancient, their branches providing a welcome shade from the relentless heat. Kofi had always been drawn to the forest, a place where he could escape from the troubles of the village and lose himself in nature. But this time, he ventured deeper than ever before, following a path that seemed to appear out of nowhere, hidden beneath the undergrowth. As he walked, the sounds of the village faded, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the calls of distant birds. The deeper Kofi went, the more he felt as if the forest was guiding him somewhere. The air grew cooler, and the sunlight, once harsh, now filtered softly through the thick canopy above. Then, almost as if by chance, Kofi stumbled upon something unusual: a cave, its entrance half hidden by vines and moss. Curiosity pulled him closer. He peered inside the cave. Waddles played tricks on his eyes, but he could make out the faint thing that looked like a drum, sitting alone in the dim light. Back in the village, Kofi sat on the edge of his family's hut, staring at the drum he had discovered. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the dusty ground. His curiosity was far from satisfied, and without thinking much of it, Kofi raised his hands over the drum surface. With a gentle tap, a soft, low hum filled the air, barely audible at first, but as his hands moved more confidently, the sound grew stronger. Then something extraordinary happened. As Kofi drummed softly, the air around him shifted. The once clear sky began to darken, and, in the distance, the faint sound of thunder rumbled. Moments later, raindrops began to fall, light at first, then heavier, as if the heavens were responding to the rhythm of his hands. Kofi's eyes widened in disbelief. He drummed again, this time hitting the drum with more force, and as if on cue, the rain ceased, and the sun broke through the clouds, its warm rays spreading across the fields. Kofi couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. He played the drum once more, experimenting with the different rhythms, and each time, the sky responded: rain, sunshine, wind. It was as if he held control over the very elements themselves. Word quickly spread through the village, and soon people began to gather around Kofi, watching in amazement as he played the enchanted drum. The villagers, whose crops had suffered from unpredictable weather for years, now saw Kofi as a hero. The balance of rain and sun brought their fields back to life, and for the first time in a long while, they believed that their harvest would thrive. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the village, Kofi sat by the old baobab tree. The drum, with its worn leather surface and intricate carvings, lay at his feet. He had heard whispers of its power, stories of how it could summon spirits and alter the fate of anyone who dared to play it. But he was determined to uncover its secrets. The night air grew cooler as Kofi's small hands hesitantly reached out to touch the drum. A strange energy surged through his fingertips, sending shivers down his spine. He quickly pulled his hand back, unsure of what he had just felt. The stories about the drum's power echoed in his mind, but curiosity was slowly taking over his fear. Kofi hesitated, his heart pounding in his chest. The drum seemed to pulse with life, almost as if it were breathing. Gathering his courage, he stepped closer once again. This time, instead of touching it, he simply sat down, staring at the drum in silence, waiting for something to happen. He could feel the air around him growing thick with anticipation. Suddenly, a low hum emanated from the drum, so soft at first that Kofi thought he was imagining it. But the hum grew louder, vibrating through the air. The ground beneath him trembled slightly, as if the earth itself were responding to the drum's call. Kofi's eyes widened in shock, but he remained seated, unable to tear his gaze away from the now pulsating drum. Before Kofi could react, a light mist began to rise from the ground around the drum, swirling in the air above it. The mist seemed to take on shapes, figures dancing in and out of the fog. Kofi felt a chill run down his spine as the figures grew clearer, revealing faces that looked both familiar and strange, like ghosts of the village's past. Kofi's breath caught in his throat as the ghostly figures danced and swirled around the drum. The faces in the mist began whispering, their voices overlapping in a language Kofi didn't understand. He wanted to run, but something held him in place, as if the drum's magic had rooted him to the spot. Suddenly, the mist shifted, and one of the figures moved forward, separating from the others. Its face became clearer, and Kofi gasped. It was the face of his grandfather, who had passed away many years ago. The figure floated closer to Kofi, its eyes glowing with a strange light as it raised its hand toward him. Kofi's heart raced as the figure of his grandfather floated closer, the glowing hand now inches from his face. He couldn't understand what was happening. Why was his grandfather here, and what did the drum have to do with it? The air around him grew colder, and the whispers of the other figures faded into silence, leaving only the sound of his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. Just as Kofi thought the ghostly hand would touch him, the figure paused, its glowing eyes locked on Kofi's. In a voice that seemed to come from deep within the earth, his grandfather whispered, "The drum has chosen you, Kofi. Do not fear." The words sent a chill through Kofi, but for the first time, he felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. The glowing figure of Kofi's grandfather slowly lowered its hand, gesturing toward the drum. "Play it," the voice whispered, deep and echoing. Kofi's heart pounded as he looked at the drum, unsure of what would happen if he touched it again. But something inside him, perhaps the spirit of his ancestors, urged him forward. With trembling hands, Kofi reached out to the drum. The moment his fingers touched the leather surface, a powerful surge of energy shot through him. The ground trembled, and the air filled with a low hum, as if the earth itself was responding to the drum's call. Kofi's eyes widened as he felt the drum's power coursing through his veins. As Kofi's hands rested on the drum, the energy surrounding him intensified. The ghostly figures began to reappear, circling around him, their whispers growing louder and more distinct. The drum beats, though not yet played by Kofi, seemed to resonate within his soul, guiding his heartbeat in rhythm. He felt connected to something far greater than himself, as if the entire village's past and future were entwined with the drum's power. Kofi could feel the drum beats coursing through his veins, even though he hadn't struck the drum yet. The ghostly figures moved faster around him, their forms blurring with the increasing pace of the whispers. It was as if the spirits were waiting for him to take the final step, to play the drum and unleash its full power. His hands hovered just above the drum's surface, filled with both fear and excitement. With a deep breath, Kofi closed his eyes and allowed his hands to fall gently onto the drum. The moment his fingers touched the surface, a loud, powerful sound echoed through the air. The drumbeat seemed to shake the entire village, and the ghostly figures froze in place, their whispers silenced. The energy from the drum surged into Kofi's body, making him feel as if he had been lifted off the ground. He opened his eyes to find himself surrounded by glowing light. The village, the baobab tree, and the ghostly figures all began to fade into the distance, leaving Kofi alone in a space filled with swirling light and shadows. In this strange new realm, Kofi heard a voice. It was his grandfather's, but now it was calm and gentle. "You have awakened the spirit of our ancestors, Kofi. The drum has chosen you to protect our village. But this power comes with great responsibility. Kofi stood in the swirling realm of light and shadows, trying to comprehend his grandfather's words. The weight of what he had been chosen for pressed down on him. But how can I protect the village? Kofi asked aloud, his voice trembling. The glowing light around him flickered in response, as if the spirits themselves were listening. The swirling light around Kofi began to settle, and in its place, visions of his village appeared, its people, the elders, and the land itself. The spirits showed him moments of the past, the struggles the village had faced, and the dangers yet to come. Kofi felt overwhelmed, realizing that the future of his people rested on his shoulders, yet a new sense of determination began to grow inside him. As the visions faded, the light transformed into the form of his grandfather once more. The elder's eyes were filled with wisdom and sadness. You are not alone, Kofi. The spirits will guide you, but the choices you make will shape the fate of your village, the ghostly figure whispered before beginning to fade into the light. Kofi felt the weight of the moment. He was not just a boy anymore, he was now a protector of his people. As the realm of light and shadows faded away, he found himself back under the baobab tree, the drum silent but pulsing with energy beneath his hands. The night air was cool and calm, yet Kofi knew his journey had only just begun. As Kofi sat under the baobab tree, the night around him felt different, as if the spirits were still watching. He gently touched the drum once more, feeling its warmth. Though the journey ahead was uncertain, Kofi felt a new sense of purpose within him. He stood up, determined to fulfill the destiny that had been placed upon him by the ancestors. With the drum secured in his arms, Kofi began walking back toward the village. The path ahead seemed both familiar and strange under the moonlight. Every sound in the night, from the rustling leaves to the distant howl of animals, seemed to hold new meaning. He felt as if the spirits were guiding his every step, watching over him as he returned to face his new destiny. As he neared the village, Kofi saw the familiar sight of the huts clustered together, the dim glow of lanterns flickering inside them. Yet, there was an eerie stillness in the air, as if the village itself had sensed the awakening of the drum's power. Kofi's heart raced as he realized that nothing would be the same again. As Kofi entered the village, the silence was almost deafening. The usual sounds of life, the chatter of families, the barking of dogs, were absent. It was as if the entire village had paused, waiting for something. Kofi could feel the weight of the drum in his hands, not just physically but spiritually, knowing that his return with it would change everything. He approached the center of the village where the elders often gathered. His steps were slow and measured, aware that this moment was significant. When he reached the center, the village elders, who seemed to have been waiting, emerged from the shadows. Their eyes were fixed on the drum, and Kofi knew they understood its importance. The eldest of them stepped forward, his face lined with age and wisdom. "The drum has awakened," he said in a deep, trembling voice. "It has chosen you, Kofi, and through you, our village's fate will be decided." The other elders remained silent, their faces grave. Kofi swallowed hard, feeling the full weight of responsibility. Kofi took a deep breath, feeling the eyes of the elders upon him. "I didn't know the drum held such power," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "What must I do?" The elders exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them, before the elders spoke again. "You must play the drum, Kofi. Its music will awaken the spirits of our ancestors and call upon their guidance. But be warned, the drum's power can also reveal hidden truths, and not all truths are easy to bear." Kofi nodded, understanding the gravity of his task. He felt a mixture of fear and excitement bubbling within him. The elders formed a circle around Kofi, their faces illuminated by the soft light of the lanterns. As he positioned himself over the drum, he felt the energy surge beneath his fingers. This was a moment of destiny, one that could reshape the future of the village forever. Kofi placed his hands on the drum, feeling the pulse of its energy beneath his fingertips. With a deep breath, he began to strike the drum in a steady rhythm, the sound echoing through the stillness of the village. Each beat resonated with power, awakening the spirits that had long been silent. As the rhythm filled the air, Kofi's surroundings began to change. The mist from earlier swirled around him, and the ghostly figures of his ancestors materialized once more, their faces filled with pride and encouragement. Kofi felt their strength coursing through him, lifting his spirit as he played. The drumbeat intensified, and the ground beneath him vibrated with the force of the music. Kofi closed his eyes, allowing the sound to guide him. He could hear the whispers of the spirits, their voices merging with the rhythm, creating a harmonious melody that seemed to connect the past and the present. Kofi felt the energy from the drum envelop him, guiding his movements as he played. The spirits around him began to dance in sync with the rhythm, their ghostly forms swirling in a beautiful display of light and shadow. Kofi opened his eyes, filled with awe at the sight, realizing that the drum was a bridge between his world and the spirit realm. As he played, Kofi began to hear words woven into the music, ancient chants that spoke of courage, wisdom, and unity. He understood that the drum was not just an instrument, it was a vessel of the village's history and hopes for the future. The realization filled him with a profound sense of responsibility. With each beat, Kofi felt more connected to his ancestors and to the land. The drum's power surged within him, and he knew he had to share this gift with the village. He envisioned a gathering where everyone could feel the spirit of the drum and understand its significance. Kofi's heart raced as he concluded his performance, feeling the last echoes of the drum reverberate through the air. The spirits began to fade, their whispers growing softer, yet their presence lingered in the atmosphere. The village elders looked at him with newfound respect, recognizing the power he had awakened within himself and the drum. "Your music has stirred the spirits, Kofi," the eldest elder said, stepping forward with a solemn expression. "Now, we must gather the villagers. They need to witness this moment and understand the gift you have brought back to us." Kofi nodded, feeling the weight of his role as a bridge between the two worlds. As the elders moved to summon the villagers, Kofi took a moment to breathe, reflecting on the journey that had led him to this point. He knew that the power of the drum could unite his people and help them face the challenges ahead. It was time to share this newfound strength. The village elders began to call out to the villagers, their voices echoing through the still night. One by one, families emerged from their huts, drawn by the sound of the drum and the elder's summons. Kofi felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he prepared to share what he had experienced. As the villagers gathered, Kofi stepped forward, holding the drum tightly. He looked into the faces of his friends and neighbors, seeing curiosity and concern reflected back at him. "I have awakened the drum," he said, his voice steady despite the fluttering in his chest. "It connects us to our ancestors and holds the power to guide us." The crowd listened intently, and Kofi could feel their energy shift as he spoke. He shared the visions he had seen, the wisdom he had received, and the importance of unity in facing their challenges. As he spoke, he saw hope igniting in their eyes, and he knew he had their attention. Kofi took a deep breath, preparing to play the drum again. He wanted the villagers to feel the power of the music and the connection to their ancestors. As he struck the first beat, the sound resonated through the air, a call to unity that echoed in every heart. With each rhythmic strike, Kofi felt the energy build around him. The villagers began to sway, caught up in the rhythm. It was as if the drum spoke to them, awakening memories of their shared past and igniting a collective spirit that had long been dormant. The atmosphere shifted, laughter and joy began to replace the earlier tension. Elders, children, and families danced together, their movements synchronizing with the beats of the drum. Kofi felt a sense of fulfillment as he watched his village come alive, united by the sound that he had awakened. As the villagers danced, Kofi's heart swelled with pride. He realized that the drum was more than just an instrument, it was a symbol of their heritage and a source of strength. The joy of the moment washed over him, and he felt the spirits of his ancestors joining in the celebration, their presence guiding the festivities. The energy in the village reached a crescendo, and Kofi played with all his heart, pouring his spirit into the rhythm. The villagers clapped and sang along, their voices harmonizing with the drumbeat. It was a moment of pure connection, where past and present collided in a beautiful tapestry of sound and movement. As the night deepened, Kofi noticed the elders watching with approving smiles. They understood the significance of what was happening, a revival of their culture and a promise for the future. Kofi felt a sense of responsibility to keep this spirit alive, not just for himself, but for generations to come. Kofi took a moment to catch his breath, the echoes of the drum still resonating in the air. He looked around at the gathered villagers, their faces reflecting a mix of awe and curiosity. He felt a deep sense of purpose swelling within him, knowing that he had a vital role to play in guiding them forward. With renewed determination, Kofi stepped forward and raised the drum above his head and spoke.
This drum holds the power of our ancestors. Together, we can harness its strength to face the challenges ahead and ensure the survival of our village. Let us unite in this moment,
he said, feeling the weight of their collective energy. Let the spirit of the drum guide us as we dance and celebrate our heritage. As he spoke, he could see the villagers starting to move, drawn to the rhythm that still lingered in the air. As the villagers gathered closer, Kofi began to beat the drum again, a steady rhythm that pulsed through the air. He encouraged them to join in, and soon the sound of their feet dancing in sync with the drum filled the night. Laughter and shouts of joy erupted as the energy in the village grew stronger. The elders, inspired by Kofi's leadership, stepped forward to join him, their traditional garments swaying as they danced. Kofi felt a deep connection with them, realizing that he was not just a boy anymore, he was a leader, a bridge between the past and the future of the village. As the celebration continued, the spirits of the ancestors seemed to swirl around them, blessing the gathering with their presence. Kofi closed his eyes, letting the music and energy flow through him, knowing that this moment would be etched in the village's memory forever. As the night wore on, the villagers danced with abandon, celebrating not just the drum, but their unity and resilience. Kofi felt a sense of fulfillment as he watched his community come alive, each person contributing to the vibrant energy that filled the air. The drum was now a symbol of hope and strength for everyone. Kofi noticed that the once quiet village was now filled with laughter, stories, and songs. People shared tales of their ancestors, recounting how the village had overcome hardships in the past. The drumbeat served as a reminder of their shared history and the strength that came from their unity. As dawn approached, Kofi realized that this gathering was just the beginning. The villagers would carry the spirit of the drum and the lessons learned into their daily lives. He felt a renewed sense of responsibility, knowing he would guide them in nurturing this connection with their heritage. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Kofi raised the drum once more, calling for quiet among the villagers. The night of celebration had transformed them, and now it was time to reflect on their shared journey. Let this drum remind us of our strength and unity, he said, his voice carrying the weight of the moment. The villagers nodded, a collective understanding settling over them. Kofi felt a sense of pride as he looked at their faces, each one filled with determination. They had faced challenges before, but together, they could overcome anything that lay ahead. The spirit of the drum would guide them. With the sun rising, Kofi began to outline plans for the future. We will hold gatherings like this regularly, where we can celebrate our heritage and connect with our ancestors, he proposed. The villagers murmured in agreement, energized by the idea of coming together more often. As the villagers discussed Kofi's proposal, excitement buzzed in the air. They began to share ideas about how to celebrate their culture, traditional dances, storytelling nights, and community feasts. Kofi listened intently, knowing that this was a pivotal moment for their village. Kofi stepped back, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over him. He realized that the drum had not only awakened the spirits but had also revived the spirit of community within his people. This connection would be their greatest strength as they faced the future. With the sun fully risen, Kofi led the villagers in one last beat of the drum. Together, they clapped their hands and sang a song of unity, their voices rising to greet the new day. The sound echoed through the village, a promise of hope and resilience. As the festivities began to wind down, Kofi felt the weight of the drum in his arms. He understood that it was more than just an instrument, it was a symbol of their shared identity and the responsibility he now carried as a leader. The villagers dispersed, but Kofi lingered by the bamboo tree, reflecting on the night's events. He knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but with the support of his community and the guidance of the spirits, he felt ready to face any challenges that lay ahead. Kofi made a promise to himself to honor the legacy of the drum and to nurture the bond between the village and their ancestors. He envisioned a future where the drum would continue to resonate with the stories and strength of generations past. With renewed purpose, Kofi walked back toward the village, the drum resting at his side. The sun shone brightly, illuminating the path ahead. He knew that together, they could create a brighter future, united by the power of the drum and the spirit of their ancestors. The moral of the story is that unity and connection to one's heritage are essential for overcoming challenges and fostering strength within a community. By honoring the past and working together, individuals can shape a brighter future for themselves and their village. Thanks for watching Omastruestories. Subscribe, share, comment and like.